First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to load up my palette. This dog is cream. It's also got a lot of nice light colors to it. And I'm going to start putting down my first layers first, and then I'll build up my details so I just don't get fixated on one area. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in and just do some nice light flicks with a different size brush. My 12 is too big for his ear. So I'm using a lot of water. I got a lot of wash in here. I'm going to come in, I'm going to start kind of flicking around, creating some nice colors to its ears. And again, I'm leaving, you'll see lots of white space, which is the paper to shine through. So I'm going to let my paper be a lot of the white parts of its fur. So I'm coming in, definitely leaving lots of space. I'm getting a damp brush. I'm going to be pulling up even this wash of a color, so I've got some nice highlights coming in while it's wet and doing little details and lines right here. Having it be darker between the ear and the face. We're also going to put a little bit of this color around in here, around its mouth. It's too dark for me, so I'm just going to put in a little bit more of a wash, just more water. Coming around his mouth over here. Gonna give it some shadow work over here as well. And then in between its little eyes, I'm gonna put this color. And coming up from the side, and then his little paws. I'm gonna bring this color in as well. I'm doing little flicking motions right here. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna mix up is my shadow color. So I'm gonna come in with a little bit of gray. I'm gonna put just a hair of blue in it so it's just not so dull. I'm going to put a lot of water. So the most important thing here when you're shadowing for the fluff is you don't want to go too dark. If you go too dark, you're just going to ruin your piece. So now I can come in and I can just do little motions. So as I'm doing this, I'm doing little flicking motions to kind of replicate the fluff in the hair. We're going to enter what I like to call the middle zone of your painting, where it might just feel really awkward and uncomfortable. You might just not really like it, but just trust the process. Keep going, keep putting down your layers. And the more you put down, the more complete your piece is going to feel. So leaving lots of white space, and this is the trickiest part about painting with watercolor, is you're playing a lot, especially with white and animals and fur, you're doing a lot of the illusion of white, and it's just a tricky balance between playing with your shadows and leaving white space. It's right underneath my leg. I'm definitely going to be shadowing. Underneath this little tummy area, I'm going to put a lot of shadow down. On the side of its leg will be nice and shadowed as well. And then I'm going to keep doing little shadows coming from the sides. Over here as well. So coming in for its mouth, I like to jump around a lot when I'm painting. I'm not sold to just one area, especially when I like to put my first layers down. So I just mixed a little bit of rose with a little bit of cadmium red for the tongue shade. And then I'm gonna mix in, I'm gonna say a bit of purple to be the shadow. Okay, so I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna apply that first color. And I'm not gonna worry about doing a perfectly straight line because there is gonna be some fluff right here around his mouth. So I'm just putting this color down all the way around. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of everything on my brush and I'm gonna scoop certain areas for a nice highlight on the tongue. I'm gonna come in with a little bit more pigment along some spots, like right above the shadow area. I'm gonna come in with that darker indigo purplish color. I'm gonna come in and just shadow really quick. And then I'm going to scoop up the sides in here. I'm going to grab my size 4 brush. I'm going to scoop up the sides right in here. I'm going to grab a gray for the crease inside the tongue. I'm just going to keep blending out. And letting things blend and bleed as we go. I'm going to add a little bit more because this is a little bit too purplish. I'm going to add a little bit more red in here. Okay, that feels pretty good for right now. I do want to just lift a little bit more off the edges in here. It keeps creeping back in. And then for the nose, I'm gonna do actually a first layer of some pink first. I'm gonna leave a little bit of white space. I'm just gonna put this color right up here. And white space again is just the paper to shine through. I'm just gonna apply this nice pink. So I have a pink undertone. And then while that's still wet, I'm gonna come in with a gray. I'm not coming in with a black. And I'm gonna come in and just touch different points around and let that bleed and blend naturally. Towards the bottom of the nose, it's definitely a little bit darker. Okay, I feel pretty good about this. It's a little nose for now. And then I'm gonna come around and I'm gonna paint, I'm trying to think. I think around the eye, I'm just gonna shadow a little bit more with the very tip of my brush. So now I'm going to kind of focus in on the eyes just a little bit. So I'm going to come again with a gray. Even though the pupils and everything are really dark on a dog, I just don't want to go super, super dark. And I'm going to leave a bit of a glare. Oops, not a glare. A little bit of a light source on the eye. Because I can always come in and make this lighter, but it's pretty hard, sorry, and darker, but it's pretty hard to go the opposite. It's hard for me to go from dark to light. Okay, now that I have my gray down, now I can start to come in with a little bit of darkness in here. And using that wet on wet technique, I can come in and let that bleed and blend naturally inside the eye. I can even scoop a little bit of the damp brush to lift up some of the pigment if I need to. Okay, so around the eye, there's a lot more shadows around where the fur would be. So I'm just gonna come in and do that. There is a little bit of gray, but there's also a lot of other tones inside this dog's face. Especially a lot of this brown color as well. It's not quite that dark. So I'm going to mix some gray into the brown that I've been using. And with that color, I'm going to come around the eye and start to create that shape inside the eye. I'm leaving a bit of white space. In the middle, I'm going to come in with black and let that blend out. Using some water to spread that out a little bit further as well. And I'm gonna repeat what I just did. I'm gonna try to leave a gap in between. I'm going to blend out this line. And then with a slight wash, I'm going to come in around here with that brown cream color. Just create some flicks above the eye. And then around the mouth, it is a lot darker down here. So I'm going to come in with a bit of a wash and paint this part down by its mouth a lot darker than the top of the head. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work on the bandana because I feel like that's going to help finish up this piece. So I'm going to come in with a nice bright blue. And I'm going to slowly start to go around and fill out my bandana. All right, so there's a little bit of a crease right here, so I am going to stop and let that dry. I'm also going to grab a nice black color, and I'm just going to shadow ever so slightly over here and in different spots. And I'm going to dry this so I can move on to the next part of the bandana. I actually think I just missed a spot in here. It looks like there's some clovers, some dark clovers, so I'm going to use my Hooker's green. I'm going to come in and just paint some of the designs on the bandana. And then I'm going to use my nice light sap green for the lighter clovers. Got too much water in my brush, I just tap my napkin. I might just completely fill out the rest of this and go around it with the blue in a bit. Coming out with this little tail. Just added a little bit of gray into my painting, my clovers, just to kind of give it some depth. And as we get closer to the angled part above the bandana, it gets pretty hard to see any more clovers. Okay, so I'm gonna dry these clovers. I want to come in right in here though and just fix up some of my lines and make it a little bit darker. So because this section is dry, if I was to paint over top of here with my wet paint, I'll have a natural crease like right in here, which is exactly what I was hoping would happen, or I was planning on happening, and that just helps this become a lot more realistic. Then I'm going to make it really rough over there because it kind of starts to fade away into its fuzzy little neck. And I'll do a little tie right in here. Okay, so while this is still wet, I'm going to come in with my gray, my blue gray, and I'm going to just do a little bit of a shadow in here. Get rid of everything on my brush, and I'm going to blend it out, even on top of my clovers. Okay, I'm going to dry this so I don't smudge this all over my page. All right, I am nowhere near done, but I can start to see this little guy take shape. So the next thing I want to do is I want to work on its mouth area. So I have, again, another bit of gray. So, sorry, not mouth area. I want to work on its little nose, and it's got lots of white space that I'm going to be leaving. I don't like this size brush, so I'm going to move to my size 4 brush. I'm going to do lots of little flicks. It is so important that I leave lots of white space. But coming from the nose, give me lots of flicks. And then coming around the nose, I'm just going to make it a little bit darker at some spots. In this little corner of its nose, I'm going to start to kind of shadow. I might take a couple layers to get to where I'm happy with it. I'm going to start shadowing inside the nose. Okay, so coming back to my eye area, I'm going to mix in this gray with my brown. I'm going to start coming in and doing more of a wash where my ink marks are. And now inside its little mouth, I'm going to come in with the gray, and right in here, it's going to be nice and dark. It's going to come all the way up. And then right in here, it's going to be dark as well. I'm going to blend it out. I've got a lot of water there. And even over here. So now it looks like the dog's starting to smile. Just so cute. I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to do that part right now. I'm so tempted to just add some details. So I'm going to come in with some more brown. From this area, I'm going to come and just do some flicks away from its little mouth. And then there's some fur around this area as well that needs to be filled in. And start to put down some shadows around its nose. And then I'm shadowing underneath the chin area right in here. So you can start to see how the dog's face is starting to kind of come to life. Blending out that line with just some water. coming in around his little ear, adding some depth to it. So I'm going to start to bring in a little bit more of a blue to start shadowing. I don't want the black to start to kind of dull it out. So I'm going to mix up a wash of my indigo. I'm going to come in and I'm just going to start shadowing with this color. I'm going to switch my brush size now that I'm doing bigger brush strokes. So the key with this kind of painting is just to kind of get out of your head and just do free brush strokes, to just not overthink it, to just start to let your brushes go. And right now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make the illusion of fluff and hair and all that. But it's hard to not have such a mental block when you're painting like this. I think it's just really important to just leave those white spaces. And if you cover too much in shadow, there's a thing called Dr. Phil Bleed Proof White we can use. There's also white gouache. There's other things that we can do to definitely help if you've overshadowed. But you'll see I'm still leaving lots of gaps. I'm just trying to make this little puppy look so cute and fluffy. And underneath the bandana is going to be darker than majority of the body. So I'm coming in and just adding a little bit more darkness to this area. To try to replicate some of the body hair that this dog has. And you'll see that now that my ears are dry, these layers right here, I'm able to come in and have more defined lines for its ears, which also means that when I come in and do these darker lines over here, they're just going to sit on top because the majority of this painting is now dry. So coming in with my blue shadow, I want to start to kind of define my dog's eyes. I have to start to do some nice shadow work around the eyes where the fur would be. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to stop right here and I want to start to add a lot of the fine details into other aspects of it, because again, I feel like this is a good first layer and I want to keep building upon what I have. So that being said, I want to work on my tongue. So I'm going to come in and just add a little bit more colors to my tongue. So right here is called the wet on dry technique. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to now smudge this out all the way towards the back. With this color, I'm also going to come in around this area right here. I'm going to blend out the harsh lines a bit. Whoa, almost just lost my brush. Okay, that's still pretty wet, so it's not really doing much. So I'm just going to let that one sit for a bit. Moving back to the nose, I want to add a little bit more details to it. So I'm going to come down now and I'm going to add a little bit more gray and really start to kind of bring this puppy to life. I keep saying puppy. I don't know if it's a puppy or an older dog. I think I just call all dogs puppies. I think they're so cute. I've actually never had or been, well, my grandma bought a dog for my older sister, and then she got too old and couldn't take care of it. I think we only had it about maybe a year. I have to check my sister on that. And then that was that. My mom and dad, my dad loves animals. My mom hates them. She got bit by a dog when she was younger and just kind of scarred her for life. So you can start to see the more layers that I'm building up, the more definition you can see on the nose. I also just want to say that I'm also not covering every layer that I have down for the most part on the nose here. I'm building upon it and letting each layer shine through. That's how I'm able to get my depth for my nose. Okay, so that's too wet, so nothing's really happening. But I can come in and start to add second layers around this area. Okay, I'm gonna keep going with some of the smaller details, especially around the eyes. We gotta start making these eyes pop. So I'm using my small size 4 brush, going around the eyes, just adding a little bit of depth. Especially I just want to add a little bit more around the nose. So around the mouth, it's a little bit, I don't know if it's just dirty or it's stained from, you know, all the food and whatnot. So I'm just going to come around with a little bit of a darker brown. Start filling that part out. I'm gonna add a little bit of a deeper, brown now to some of these areas. This kind of has like a little bit of red. There's a little bit of a red undertone here. So I have my gouache, and I just want to come in and just do some fine lines. With this gouache, it literally just sits on top, and this is going to help just kind of blend out and just give some nice fluff to my animal here. I really like using some white on here. I feel like it just gives it that extra pop and dimension. My client has requested a blue background, so I'm going in with a wash of blue and blending it out using water to do soft blends around the edges. If you like this video and if you learned some fun techniques along the way or just sat back and enjoyed watching me paint this puppy, please feel free to subscribe so you can follow along for more videos just like this one. Happy painting, friends.